as a whole needs this.
Yeah, every team in the league right now is an Oni Warriors fan. But I like an upset, Dave. I don't know.
No, I agree. If Hex Mamba are able to find a way to get this done, one of the more miraculous upsets we've maybe ever seen, given the context of the run that the Oni Warriors went on and are still on throughout the entirety of Phase 1. And if they have anything to say about it, throughout Smite Masters as well. Let's talk compositions. Hex Mambo, they brought aggression to the forefront here. Love Julio on the King Arthur. And Johnny, one of the most banned out players here this weekend, Miff. Eats a few more bans, still ends up with his Loki, and I think that's where you got to start talking about this Hex Mambo team. Had a Penta earlier today. You'll have an opportunity to make an impact on this Loki pick.
Yeah, Loki's been interesting for me. It's been working out for Johnny, but it hasn't been Johnny getting hyper-aggressive. It's not Johnny making things happen on the map like it is when he's on Ao Kuang or maybe some of his other more aggressive picks. More so on the Loki, it's about hanging back.
Netrioid uses the beads and actually dashes back in as Spudio used all of his damage. The supports brawling out with the ADCs. Everyone stays alive in duo. Enough sustain on either side of that lane to keep everyone near full in the HP department. Kha'Zix's just a bit low. Agreed, though, on the Johnny point. Panatom, though, on the flip side. Talking about one of the best junglers, if not players, in the world at the moment. And he gets his Circuit. Playmaking style, good damage, good utility opportunity in a pick like that. Careful, Netrioid dashes away. That root from Kha'Zix might have been difficult. Johnny rotating to left, considering a gank, but won't find that opening.
Yeah, should just be the farm for Johnny, and that's going to be the case for the next 12 or so levels. Seems like he really does like getting that second relic online before he gets active on map in the PvP. So, expect to see him trying to rotate through the side lanes mainly just for the neutral farm, control those neutral camps, and put himself ever so slightly ahead. If anyone needs to get active, it would be Panatom. Circuit is a pace-setting style of pick, one that can find picks very easily. Even up against Julio here, King Arthur, pretty safe in lane, but only level 3, doesn't have that defensive item finished up just yet. Would be an opportunity for Panatom, especially if he can take over to level 5 before Julio is able to make his way back to base. Speaking of back to base, Johnny has already made his way back just the once. So a little bit additional time on field for Panatom here. Less power in pocket, but maybe more farm in pocket for him.
Looking towards mid. He'll run face first. Panatom will into Johnny here on the mid camps. Glad we got to hover over in solo lane for just a moment. SOT on the Achilles, and I'll talk about that more in just a second. What would you say in the last 2 weeks a lot of Smite is? How many hours of Smite in the last 2 weeks would you consider a lot? Ooh. For a player to have played?
For a player to have played?
In the last couple weeks.
I would say, oh man, on average, if we're doing doubleheader weeks, you can expect them to go 3, right? So anywhere upwards of like 7 hours of in-game time?
A day.
A day, yeah. Oh, a day, anything over 3.5 hours is crazy.
I want for two weeks, 14 days of human life. How many hours is a lot of hours of Smite to have played in your mind?
20? Let's call it 20. Yeah, let's call it 20.
SOT told me he played 250 hours of Smite in the last 2 weeks.
Man. SOT has not seen the sun. That is insane.
I was talking to him before the interview, and I said, oh, Assad, it's been about like a month. You guys qualified in, like halfway through Phase 1. You've been chilling. You've been practicing a lot. You've been playing a lot of Smite. And he goes, yeah, I don't know, 250 or so hours on Steam.
Who's counting, though?
In the last few weeks, Steam is, apparently. It's clarified just how much Smite this guy has played. Pagon, uh-oh. He's got Johnny chasing him down in mid. Johnny's got an ult, but Pagon's got beads. A knock up in water hands. All of that had to be moment perfect from both players. Johnny was out for blood. Pagon will live for the time being. But with some of that 250 hours of playtime myth. SOT settled on the Achilles as his selection here for Game 1.
Yeah, Achilles has been a pick on the rise recently. We've seen him out of the jungle a few times. It's been a little while since we've seen him in the solo lane, but incredibly good boxing potential, combat dodge, just a really annoying ability to deal with in the laning phase. He's got relatively good sustain, better than what King Arthur should be bringing. And then it's that execute come late game that becomes so important. Are you landing your shots? Are you not? And it's binary, right? If yes, Achilles looks pretty good. If no, all of a sudden that pick starts to lose some of its luster. I'll be keeping my eyes on SOT. Because it feels like SOT and the Oni Warriors might have a composition here that could just deal with the front line of Hex Mambo. If Julio and Kha'Zix are going to be forced to initiate all these fights, that execute from SOT might just be the linchpin for the Oni Warriors in the team fight.
I'm doing this math now. There's no way it was 250 hours. That's like 17 hours of Smite a day for the last 2 weeks.
That guy's a streamer, though.
I'm thinking he may be meant in the last like month since we've seen them play. He's added another 200 or so hours of Smite. That's how I'm gonna
24 hours in a day. 2 weeks is 14 days.
You wake up, you go to bed, you stream for 17 hours.
That's 10 of the 14 days spent in game.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's a longer term answer that he gave me. Not
I'm
just
thinking he's a liar.
I'll find out. We'll find out from Sot one way or another. Phalanx to start off his build. Be just fine over there in lane. Johnny's going to stack up a bit on this Transcendence, whereas Panatom has gone Jotuns with his first item. And we've seen Johnny a bit hovering around the map. Made a gank attempt over in mid. Pagon was right on time with Crushing Wave with his beads. Is now the time, though, Myth. Level 8, 1 item in, a tier 1 item in for Panatom. Is now the time for the Circuit to get active.
Yeah, especially considering he has elected to go for the faster build. With Jotun's Wrath as opposed to Transcendence, which we have seen a fair deal of in the past, you want him getting active while he's got this advantage over Johnny. Johnny, of course, not exactly keen to take too many fights. Maybe would be if he can find Pagon the next 20 seconds before those beads are back up. Where would I send Panatom? Rotations towards Hawk, always pretty appetizing. Catch him out before he finishes up his stacking item, if he elects to go the stacking item, that is. We've seen this new age, just tier 2 item build tend to stick for a little while. Could be that he just holds on to tier 2 book and then turns it into a Soul Reaver.
Pagon stacking.
A little bit later on. Yeah, that is interesting as well. I think that does indicate to me something the desk had brought up, which is the Oni Warriors look to W key with this type of composition.
Yep.
You want a little bit of HP, a little bit of damage. Can't go wrong with Warlock Staff.
One thing that I can confirm the math of, that Sot told me, is that he sensed that there's just a lot more scrapping going on, a lot more things to fight over. The Stygian Beacon in mid has brought up fights. Titans have brought up fights. And we were wondering, the big question around this Oni Warriors team was, will the new meta lean into what the Oni Warriors want to do? Are they going to have to pivot and play a different style? Do they not care? They're going to play their game either way. A meta that enhances fighting. Seems like it could be a good avenue for the Oni Warriors to follow, given where they found a lot of their success in Phase 1. Panatom winning a bit of a health trade against Johnny, but Johnny will send a little bit of damage right on back. Loki with the Assassinate back online. Got the beads off of Pagon a little bit ago, but hasn't been able to strike pay dirt from that point on. In the dual lane, Myth, it started off with some fireworks in the beginning, but plenty of sustain with both of these supports. And a Sunder from Cozy finds Jake, but Jake, one of the players on this Aphrodite Myth that keeps us maybe believing in the viability of the pick. Julio stunned by SOT. He's on the wrong side of the lane, and execute needed. Still an execute threshold, but I'm not sure Sot can close that gap. Up and over he goes, and just needed some lockdown from Panatom. Gank number 1 and kill number 1. 8 minutes in to game number 1.
Man, that is a well-coordinated fight right there. Just SOT starts channeling the ultimate as soon as the dash forward from Panatom is channeled, knowing that the taunt will be there immediately afterward, and he was right to trust in his jungler. Clean play to the Oni Warrior. Surprised to see Julio playing as far up in the lane as he was. Similarly, Pagon caught out. Assassinates there. Does he have the HP? He does.
Didn't have much more mana, though. Needed to dodge out that apple, I will add. Hawk, how that apple of Discord landed on a Pagon. Might have been talking about a slightly different moment, but just part of that solo lane fight that we saw that gave Oni Warriors first blood. I was talking a bit about Awesome Jake on the Aphrodite. And Myth, we've seen this pick for a little while. We'll call it 50-50 success.
Well, with Jake, we'll call it 100%.
Right, 100% success with Jake. 50-50 maybe across the rest of the league.
That's a generous 50-50.
Boosted by Jake.
Yeah.
Potentially. But this is a pick and a style of pick that really just facilitates the rest of the Oni Warriors and how they want to play.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the selection of target for Kiss on Jake. Is it going to be Panatom so that he's allowed to jump into the back line? Or is it going to be Pagon so that your Hebo, who is a late-game Quadra ultimate style pick, now has additional protections and another Beads Aegis hard baked into his kit as well, thanks to that Undying Love. I would imagine we see him connected up with Pagon pretty consistently, have Panatom act more so as a solo agent, just hovering on the edge of the team fight. But we'll see. The Oni Warriors have always had their own style of play. They've always had their own methods, and even though they stray from the standard sometimes, be hard-pressed to find anything to question about them, considering the win streak that they've found themselves in as of now. Hex Mambo, though, a pace that I've become accustomed to seeing from them. Hold that thought, Julio.
Look out for Execute Threshold. Sat's got ultimate, and Julio will be taunted in once more. This one, simple now. Who gets it? Panatom or SOT?
Whoa! Okay.
Okay, Sat gets it. Sat gets it, don't worry. But now there's reinforcements from Hex Mambo. Hawk has just been off the mark with these ultimates so far this game. Panatom
beads.
Blinks forward once more, looks for the taunt, doesn't get it, but gets beads away from Hawk. That's a value trade for the Oni Warriors. Only the time spent of 2 players over in solo, and you get a kill. And a set of beads off the middle laner. Sot.
He might have them.
Remember, Sot never used Execute.
Ooh.
Or maybe it's still on cooldown. Either way, Johnny's able to get out. His diamond is full, but did not want to take the dive underneath the tower.
Yeah, here's the thing about Sot. He's 2-0, and if he trades out his life for Johnny, that's a value trade for Johnny with the shutdown mechanics in Smite. And so, a good decision to hold off on diving into that tower. Fatal Strike, when you land it as well, does reduce your defenses every time you find those executes. So, would have been a guaranteed death there for the Achilles if he had decided to go into that tower. The point I was trying to make before the Oni Warriors do what they always do when we cast their games, which is force action on the map.
When you're trying to make a point.
That's right. Is that Hex Mambo, this is a pace that we've become accustomed to seeing from them. The slower early game, maybe not overly proactive, have Johnny farm up, just hover in your lanes and keep your head above water style of play. And it served them well, undefeated up until this point. But looking at the compositions, I would almost argue that the Oni Warriors just scale much better into the late game, the 5-on-5 engagement. So if that is the portion of the match that Hex Mambo are aiming for, might find themselves in store for a rude awakening. The Oni Warriors, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, they could just rest on their laurels for the next few minutes, and I would not be concerned about it.
I'm not sure. The only reason I'd be concerned is because that's not what the Oni Warriors do. I'd be wondering what's going on, but a fight may break out now. Stygian Beacon spawns in mid. Kha'Zix, for now, will contest it, but you can see this rallying of the Oni Warriors over towards the mid lane. Stygian Beacon is captured. Wondered if we would see a scrap over it. Hex Mambo not liking the opportunity that was presented to them there, so it's an easy first, I guess we'll call it a neutral objective over to the Oni Warriors, and that buff, that tower shred, really a structure shred, can really start to add up if the Hex Mambo aren't able to find their opening. Jake has finally started to rotate out of this duo lane here, Myth.
He's in trouble.
We're going to be fighting a bit further. Kha'Zix caught out maybe once more. An Undying Love early from Awesome Jake. Jake will eat the ultimate from Hawk. Over in mid, Johnny has Assassinate and Blink. Does not want either gap close opportunity. Oni Warriors poking and prodding once more. Maybe more just make Hex Mambo think about what's going on.
Yeah, I wonder. I'm pretty sure Crushing Wave would have secured the kill there, but considering the positioning of Hawk, had Pagon decided to use it aggressively, had he made contact, likely would have found himself in no man's land immediately afterward. And so, some discipline from the Oni Warriors. And discipline's not something the Oni Warriors have ever been lacking for. I know the conversation around this team is that they just press their buttons better and they play faster than everybody else, but there's a method to their madness. You can see it in their rotations around these neutral objectives, how quickly they are able to get active around Pyromancer, around Gold Fury. And so, a good deal of respect towards Hex Mambo from the Warriors.
Yep.
I imagine we're going to hit an inflection point very shortly. And it's got to do with this third item. Just about across the board, pretty massive power spikes here for the Oni Warriors. Panatom starting to stack up a little bit of that defensive utility. Pagon getting a little bit more HP stacked up as well. These are the Warriors. Will become very tanky very quickly, and that's not even taking into account the defense share from Awesome Jake.
Right.
Hex Mambo, if they want to leverage this pick-based composition, if they want Johnny getting active in that back line, no easy targets for him, except for Netroid, but CERN is one of the more self-sufficient, self-peeling ADCs in the game.
Yep.
Okay, use Assassinate on me, I'll drop Wild Hunt on my feet, and then from there, hopefully the team can get back and help me out in time. And for the most part, I'd expect them to be there.
Yep. Oni Warriors usually in sync with one another. And that's been what a lot of the players themselves have attributed their success to.
Yeah, what do they say? There's just, Yeah, we don't even talk that much. We just kind of play, and what I would do is what my teammates are doing.
Would do. Right.
What I wouldn't have given to have any sort of connection like that with teammates in the past. That's just got to be a great feeling.
Right. Do you think that's your fault because of your play style? Right.
I'm a stinker, bud.
Right. The other 4 players were on the same page, and then there's Myth running down RDO jungle.
Whoa. Did you say that? Why do you know about my RDO jungle game, man?
God, there's just something about that game. RDO jungle.
Yeah, I was 0-14.
Maybe.
Okay, it was on LAN. All right, we get it. I get it. Let's talk about this one. You know?
You're right. That's my fault. Got to get in my shots while I can, Myth. SOT working on things over here in solo. He's got a couple kills given over to him by Panatom, and his rotation's over. But really the 1-level lead there. Julio's been able to stack up a couple items just fine. Haven't seen the solo laners make their waves across the map just yet. Poor Pagon, speaking of waves, he's had his crushing wave on cooldown pretty frequently here. Ganks over towards mid have gotten beads and ultimate off the Hebo maybe more often than Pagon would have liked. So we haven't really been able to see him get super aggressive around the rest of his team. You're right, though, talking about respect. Only Warriors paying it to Hex Mambo, but Hex Mambo, they're maybe now sensing some space that's been given. Sot, can he make magic happen? No.
Close.
Pyromancer nearly stolen by the Achilles, but that means a Gold Fury is pulled on the other side of the map by the Oni Warrior. Spudio is going to sniff this out. Panatom is here. Squishy Hachiman, got to be careful. Beads taken away, but Johnny, Kha'Zix, they're rotating behind. Oni Warriors get the Gold Fury, but do you get out alive? Awesome Jake doesn't have ultimate. Undying Love has already been used, but he's scurrying away to the rest of his team. Oni Warriors, they're going back in. Panatom, eyes for Spudio, who's been abandoned by the rest of his team. Sought on a teleport out of solo lane. Grabs his 3rd kill and a Gold Fury for the Oni Warriors. Just a faster rally. Hex Mambo, kind of a piecemeal steal attempt, ends up dropping a kill and the Fury itself.
Yeah, Hex Mambo really wanted to chase after the objective. They see that Awesome Jake has isolated himself, and it looked at me like Jake had essentially accepted his fate. Okay, well, I might die, but at least we got the Fury, and the rest of my carry is going to make it out alive. But the rotation from Pagon through the back line, SOT's teleport, and Jake just being a little bit tankier than I think anybody expected leads to an Oni Warriors massive swing. So it's Pyromancer for Gold Fury and a kill, favoring the Warriors.
I love this from Sot. Sot was trading out with Johnny. Julio stepped up, and Sot simply walked by Julio and kept chasing down Johnny. Says you a good bit of confidence in a tier 1 tower. Crumbles on the left side. That'll be your first tower of the game for Awesome Jake and Netrioid. Jake has really played his rotations well here. Seems like he's been in the right spot at the right time. Helped out Netrioid and shoving down the tower. Helped out the rest of the team around that Fury fight. Silver lining for Hex Mambo is that Runic Bomb. And Myth, we don't know the true value of the Pyromancer until that Runic Bomb gets used, right? One way or another. Hex Mambo will either steal something away or I could end up fizzling out. It'll be the next Stygian Beacon, though, that we might turn our eyes to. And if we have hit some of those 3-item power spikes across the board for the Oni Warriors, in fact, we have. Still waiting on a couple of those items, though, for Hex Mambo. Maybe hard-pressed to find a big fight here around the beacon.
Man, Prid win finish for Panatom. Some more CDR and a little bit of burst damage on the tail end of his ultimate as well. Means that these targets on Hex Mambo that have already struggled up against Johnny will only continue to do so. You need Hex Mambo's damage dealers to get involved soon. Julio's had a great performance in lane himself. Hawk maybe a bit off the mark with some of these golden apples, but since then has right that ship. Maybe once Spudio starts to rotate to these engagements, things will start to turn around a little. Kha'Zix taking a play from Genetics' book, just being annoying and standing on the corner, but only delays the inevitable. The Chaos will control the control point once more. And now the Oni Warriors, 2% additional global movement speed and 10% additional structure damage. They'll make short work of any of these towers.
Yep, and movement speed, it's never going to feel bad, moving a bit quicker. Even if it's just 2%. Always feels nice. Structure damage could come in handy if you want to siege up one of these mid lane or maybe solo lane tier 1 towers. The Fury and the Pyromancer are going to be slightly staggered out from one another, Myth. About a 45-second difference between Fury and Pyro. Between Pagon and Jake, haven't seen much just yet. Panatom, though, initiates onto Julio. Finally, an apple rolls through from Hawk. Catches out onto Awesome Jake, who's used Undying Glove already. Uh-oh. This is when the Oni Warriors make their money. They collapse in all suddenly into a team fight. Sot on 4.
Watch Johnny.
3 of them onto Julio. But Johnny, maybe still some gas in the tank, and Assassinate could make its way over the wall. Kha'Zix, though, chased down by Sot. And Sot's the one with all the gas in the tank. He's filled it up with the good stuff. 5 kills here in game 1. Another assassinate, but this one weaves its way past Johnny, and there was an execute threshold anyway. Could be a triple in this fight. And it's the assassinate that's actually still there for the Loki. And Fatal Strike nets a couple kills for Sot.
Yeah, the Oni Warriors, I mean, it's just these prolonged team fights now that are really coming back to bite Hex Mambo. The fight starts, it looks even, and then it keeps going, and it keeps going, and all of a sudden the Oni Warriors on their second wind, just so much more powerful thanks to the sustain from Awesome Jake. And these delayed rotations from Pagon in particular have been crushing for Hex Mambo. Pagon on the last 2 team fights we saw around the Gold Fury and now here around the Pyromancer wasn't there from the offset. Shows up 20, 30 seconds into the fight and says, well, okay, no, ultimates are up. Maybe I go a little bit crazy here. Yep. And has done so every single time. Priority targets need to get addressed. And those priorities are Netroid, Pagon, and maybe you throw Panatom in that conversation. I wouldn't. He's more so a facilitator right now, especially with his highly defensive build. But Hex Mambo just have not had their opportunities to get into that backline. Nope. The dive potential that the desk highlighted between Loki and King Arthur, it really just hasn't happened yet.
Problem is Johnny's passive is also not unlocked. He's not like 2 and 6. He's just 000. So the Penta passive will be a few deaths away for this Loki. He'll hope to avoid that though and unlock a good team fight. Is it around this Oni Fury? Doesn't look like it. Hex Mambo. They're more concerned with the tier 1 tower in mid. Get some global gold for the team. Been a few assists here for Pagon. Haven't seen the full brunt of this Hebo just yet. The storylines have been written around SOT and Pagon, or Panatom rather, handing a few kills over to the Achilles early in this game. And this is the trickle effect that can start to happen against the Oni Warriors. They'll get a few kills, but then they start to pull away with the objectives. This is a team that early on ran down their kills, ran down their wins. They diversified some of those win conditions, though, in the last few weeks of Phase 1, and just a better objective control team on top of what was also a really, really good and best-in-the-world team fight team.
And it is worth noting, though, that Hex Mambo have not fallen out of striking range here. Gold, relatively even, considering how far into the game we are. Experience, legitimately even right now as well. Maybe a half level here or there, but the majority of the targets on the Oni Warriors are approaching or already at level 20, so some of that experience gap deceptive. Hex Mambo, it's their standard style. Delay the game. They're starting to get to that point, but I haven't seen a portion of the team fight that they can start to lean on consistently. And that has been Hex Mambo's win con is, all right, 25 minutes, let's get it rolling. PvP is looking real good for the Oni Warriors. The best situations we've seen from Mambo are their disengage.
Yep. Oh, is this just sudden FG call from the Oni Warriors? You're 5v5 on the map. Spudio, though, over on left, so I'm wrong in the team fight, but right on the map. It's a 5v4 over here on right. Panatom eats the apple, sends a bit of damage back to his team, and maybe that evens the scales a bit, gives Hex Mambo a chance in this fight. Remember, you've got Awesome Jake for sustain. Spudio, this could pay off if somehow the Oni Warriors are delayed from an FG and Spudio keeps going, which he won't. Really just a tier 2 tower. So actually a really nice play for Hex Mambo. And Spudio, the ADC, snags the tier 2, and Hex Mambo prevent the FG.
Yeah, SOT caught by the spread of the golden apple there. I believe would have had enough damage on second combat dodge to do just enough to put Kha'Zix into that execute threshold, but because he was crippled out, forced to disengage and takes a bit too much poke on the tail end from Hawk as well. Strife and Unruly Magic to stick around. So the Oni Warriors would have likely re-pulled the Fire Giant there had they not taken so much damage, but with Spudio on map, generating pressure as well, forced to reset themselves defensively. Johnny locks eyes with Panatom. That's an easy grab. Assassinate early.
About to be locking eyes with the rest of the Oni Warriors. Assassinate and beads are gone, and that's enough for now. No more chase down. Stygian Beacon, it's about to spawn.
Well, he hits hard.
Hawk, oh no, he's used Aegis early. Crushing wave, threw him auto at the apple, oh, and misses again. Hawk able to get out alive once more. Early Undying Love. Panatom searching for targets. No taunts on this one. Oni Warriors, they have dropped a couple of kills here recently, but maybe that's just opened the door to the Stygian Beacon, and this will unleash the Titans in just a little bit of time. Oni Warriors, the team that'll fight for fighting's sake. I'm interested to see what they can get done around Titan spawn as well.
No beads, no Aegis for Hawk. I'm thinking an opportunity for Panatom to start hunting. Just himself might have enough damage to threaten out the enemy mid laner Surprised that Pagon survives that engagement because I just assumed that he'd picked up Blink because that's Pagon's MO on just about every mid laner. Instead, beats Aegis. A little bit more of that respect towards Hex Mambo.
Pyromancer goes to Hex Mambo. Bit of a meeting of the minds over on right, but Hex Mambo, the ones who call the coin flip correctly. Runic bomb for them. Oni Warriors won't be super concerned with that. You're right, though, and I want to harken back to what you had mentioned. Hex Mambo remain in striking distance despite the 5-0 SoloOrTroll. Achilles got to be a concerning factor. But outside of the gold myth, what you've talked about, it's that team fight threat. It's been very back foot from Hex Mambo. Very, well, if we can shrug off the initial engage, maybe we can fight with the second engage, but haven't seen much of that. You're about to be full build on Spudio outside of starter item upgrade. And got that to look forward to. Titans Unleashed. They're going to march down mid lane. And Myth Oni Warriors will send all 5 to mid right away, but might disperse and make full use of the map before the Titans officially meet.
Yeah, 3-2 split from the Oni Warriors. 3 on the gold, 2 on the right, just to make sure Fire Giant isn't pulled by Hex Mambo. Mambo will become aware of the positioning very shortly, as that gold free will be knocked down. Whichever team can make contact with the enemy Titan first, at a clear advantage, being able to drop some of that HP before it really turns into a team fight, so valuable. And that'll be the Oni Warriors, who have completely controlled the center of the map. They grabbed themselves a neutral objective and the defensive positioning in the center with 0 cost. Hex Mambo not able to get anything done here. That is a healthy Titan. This might just be a tier 2 tower.
Could be. Hex Mambo, again, backpedaling underneath the tier 2 in mid. Oni Warriors, they are full strength outside of a couple of relics. It's the Aegis for Pagon. That's 20 seconds away. Hawk, similar, but both of the actives.
That's burning.
Titan will be melted down quickly, and quickly enough for the Oni Warriors to be uninterested in fighting any further. But if Hex Mambo stepped too far out, maybe assuming the Oni Warriors had backed away, could be dangerous. Johnny has stepped pretty far out. He's got a lot of damage for Netrioid. Oh, goodness! Panatom plus Netrioid is an equation that Johnny had not calculated. And now there's an opening for 45 seconds. Hex Mambo without their Loki.
Oni Warriors have got so much time to play with here. It's just Pagon and Awesome Jake throwing out some poke. They're very safe. A lot of movement speed between the two of them, as well as survivability with Undying Love still available. But I'd like to see them get a bit more done than just poke towards mid. Set up a gank in the jungle. Catch someone on the rotation in. TKO is valuable because you want the Fire Giant. Already pulled. Netroid's starting to slowly work through it.
That's right. Netroid working it down. Awesome Jake is there just to tank it up a bit further. SOT, a terrifying thought to run into for Hex Mambo. Panatom's on the other side of the engagement. A slow burn FG, but one that Hex Mambo seemingly simply won't be able to contest. Down it goes after about a 30-second burn. The Oni Warriors get it on everyone, and Hex Mambo shudder at the sight of SOT and Panatom stepping forward.
Hex Mambo just have not found their footing in the engagement. It'll be easy to find it. It'll be under your Phoenix or potentially a soft defense on these tier 2s. And base defense not weak from Hex Mambo. Discordia and Terra, very good in class, Mage and Guardian on base defense at stopping the aggression of just about anyone, especially a composition like this from the Oni Warriors that is really, really short range. You don't have any long range abilities here. It's all going to dedicate yourself. As Panatom, is this a catch?
As Panatom made the first mistake of the game for the Oni Warriors. Remains to be seen. If nothing else, he started off a fight.
Wow.
Oh, Pagon, Netrioid, the carries. They're low on the Oni Warriors.
That's one.
Hex Mambo have bought their time, and Hex Mambo have now bought a team fight. Julio on a double. After starting off 0-3, the King Arthur has ignited in this game. 28 minutes in, finally Hex Mambo find their first few kills. SOT still 5-0, does not want to hand over any free gold to Hex Mambo. But it's Hex Mambo, Myth, with a big opening here, 35 seconds at least on 3 death timers.
Yeah, those runic bombs from earlier have already been expended, though, so they'll have to work through that Phoenix the old-fashioned way. Panatom and SOT, not the best suited for defense, but some low HP targets. Fatal Strike might be big.
This is awkward. A taunt onto Kha'Zix. SOT, a stun onto Kha'Zix. Fatal Strike, it's there. Wow, our Hex Mambo. That's
They're
be
going
behind
for it.
The entirety of the game, considering an end. Panatom on a double taunt. Sot's got 5 kills, but 5 more to get if he wants to save this game.
It's too slow.
Back into the fountain he
50%.
goes. It is a slow burn. Oh man, Hex Mambo. The health bar is low. Pagon's back in. Pagon
The
on a
defense.
triple. Oh, that's unreal. Pagon, Sot, and the rest keep the game alive. Hex Mambo had their opening. Pagon slams the door in their face.
Panatom into Grayscale is taking the Runic Bomb with them, Dave. Do the Oni Warriors have enough time to knock down the base? 30 seconds on nearest respawn. SOT's already there. It might be tight timing. It's hard to call.
Oni Warriors, this game looked easy for a while. Then now suddenly it might not be. Myth, maybe a Phoenix. Maybe a Phoenix is the safe call here for the Oni Warriors team. They want to rumble into the base. There's only one tower left on the map. They've got everyone. 15 seconds left on Kha'Zix. 15 on Spudio. The Oni Warriors full strength. Pagon had 0 kills 45 seconds ago. He'll end the game with 3. And don't let the 1-0 Oni Warriors lead fool you. Hex Mambo gave him a scare at the end.
And talk about diversifying your playstyle. That's how we open up this set. This is a much slower Oni Warriors. Not a whole lot of objective play in this one. A lot of team fighting, but not a whole lot of kills either. And at the very end, it is the thinnest of margins that sees them coming out on top. Hex Mambo clearly have earned every bit of respect that they've got.
Time to go back and assess that Runic Bomb that Hex Mambo.
Dude, that might have been it. It might have been it.
It was close, man.